Welcome to the Houston Southeast YouTube channel. The district is excited to partner with Filet Inc., a Houston Southeast business, in supporting your efforts as you seek federal, state, and local funding for your business. Visit houstonse.org to learn more about the Business Retention Stabilization Initiative. This is your district at work.
Hey small business owners, Natasha Martinez here to help you go and get some of this last minute money from the SBA. I'm sure you guys have heard by now, the COVID funds have been assessed to give us a little bit of change to kind of get through these trying times. So the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, EIDL, EIDL, whatever you want to call it, we're going to learn today how to fill this application out. Kind of quick. I'm gonna run through it extremely quickly. There are a lot of things I'm gonna pass up. You may need to go back and read and try to understand a lot of this stuff that's going on so you are truly aware of what you're signing up for. But in the meat of things, it's a 30-year loan. It's a 3.75 interest rate. You don't have to pay this back for 12 months from the date you signed for the loan. However, interest will accrue. Let's get started. SBA.gov. Once you get there, yellow tab at the top, you want to click that click here button. A lot of information here, all of it relevant, very, very relevant, but for the sake of time, I'm going to go on down to the mid page, blue area, we're going to apply here. And as you can see up here at the top, expiration date, September 30th, 2020. We're really close and marginal here, so I'm gonna run through this application. Blah, 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 blah. Read all of that, that's important. I'm gonna kind of focus on small businesses because I'm sure some of the larger businesses knew exactly what to do. So we're gonna focus on the individuals who actually have sole proprietors, with or without employees, or independent contractors. Also, if you're not a small company, your first option applicant is a business with not more than 500 employees would be also considered somewhat of the people I'm trying to cater to today as well. But we're gonna go ahead and go with the sole proprietorship. We're gonna scroll on down, review and check all of the following. Applicant must review and check all of the following. If the applicant is unable to check all the following, the applicant is not an eligible entity, okay? For the sake of time, we're gonna check them all. But I want you guys to go in and read and make sure none of these items will disqualify you. All right, let's get to business. So, legal name. Now, your legal name can be you as a person, it could be a business, it could be however you set up, only you would know the answer to that. I'm gonna just say it's under your personal name. So we're gonna use Joe Jack. He's gonna be our candidate. And Joe Jack has a DBA. His DBA is called Wally World. Joe Jack does not, however, function under his Social Security number. He actually has a tax ID number. Your tax ID number, by the way, is 9 digits, and it had to have been acquired from the Internal Revenue Service, or you use your Social Security number. Type of business. Well, Joe Jack already told us at the top that he was doing business as himself, so we're gonna go ahead and say he's a sole proprietor. Now here, he could be a sole proprietor, he could be an independent contractor. If you happen to be looking at this video and you happen to be a single member LLC, multi-member LLC, any corp, S-corp, any of general partnership, any of these other options, you choose those. But we are gonna be a sole proprietorship today. We are not a nonprofit. We are not a franchisee. Now, this box is extremely important. It says gross revenues for the 12 months prior to the date of the disaster, January 31st, 2020. So basically it's telling you 2019. So what you want to do is if you have financial statements, you want to look on your profit and loss statement, you're going to look inside of your revenue, income, sales, services, whatever you want to call it. It is the money that you collected into your business, not the net, the gross money that you collected before any expenses. We're just gonna use a random number, and we're gonna say 500K, $500,000. It's a really good sole proprietorship there. Now, we're gonna jump down to the next one. Now, this is another box that's extremely important. Your cost of goods sold. Sometimes people get this really confused, and I've seen a lot of applications end up with very small amount of loans because they felt like a number needed to go here. Not all the time does a number need to go here. Cost of goods, in the case of this application, they're mostly talking about things that you actually purchase or manufacture or that type of thing that you actually use to make money. So in essence, to make this $500,000, we had to buy $200,000 in widgets in order to actually get this $500,000 in. So for the sake of this application, we're gonna say that our cost of goods is $250,000. Now, keep in mind, if you provide a service, you don't have cost of goods. So, there are times that you would, but in this particular case, you likely don't have cost of goods. That's not exactly what this particular application is talking about. So if you have let's just say you have you're a realtor, okay? A realtor would have gross revenue, you won't have any cost of goods. So your number will be 0. Just because the box is here doesn't necessarily mean we have to fill it in. Next box, if you happen to be the owner of rental property or something like that, this is where you would put your rental property gross revenues. Your nonprofit, this is where you would put those costs. Your rental properties, you would have your cost of your rents. And then you'd have your nonprofit, the cost of operating. And then you have compensation for other sources received as a result of the disaster, which means that if you've received money from the state, federal, local government, you would put that information here, even if it wasn't from the government. If you just received money or you were compensated for something that dealt with this disaster, this is where you put those funds. Provide brief description of other compensation sources. So let's just say you wanted the Harris County gave you some funds. You would put receive funds from Harris County, and that will give the government an opportunity to say, okay, well, they did divulge that information. Primary business address. Now, if you have a physical business address, of course, you want to use that. If you do not have a physical business address, then you want to use whatever you use for your business. If it's your home address, it's your home address. They do not want you to use post PO boxes, sorry. So definitely stay away from those. And for the sake of this information, we're going to use some cute little opportunities. It doesn't want me to be, let's just do Houston. How about that? Harris County. Let's represent the trade. Alrighty, business phone number. Whatever your phone number is, you want to put that in. I'm gonna file it in. How about that? If you have another alternative business number, you can use it there. Business fax, who uses those these days? Email address. Now, date business was established. Notice you have date business was established, current ownership since. It's very important that you understand this. As a sole proprietor, likely the date we established the business is the current ownership date. Sometimes we have people that have partnerships or LLCs, and the date that they established the business is a little bit different than the ownership date. In our case, we're a sole proprietor, so the date we started the business is the date of our ownership. Now, also keep in mind, if a date goes here that is prior to COVID, your application is going to be denied immediately. They're not looking for people who just recently started businesses. They're looking for people who have already been in business and they are suffering some type of economic hardship. So we're gonna use 01/01/2017. Let's actually do 01/01/2017. I'm trying to hurry up for you guys, right? All right, so business activity. This one is, if you do business, this one shouldn't be that difficult for you. However, I am finding that a lot of the information here is really limited when choosing what type of business you have. You want to try to get as close as you can to what you actually do. We're going to actually say Joe Jackson has a general business service, okay? So business activity, business services. Then it says detailed business activity. And of course, here it is again. You can say none of the below, or you can choose one of these options. Why they chose these, I have no idea. These are like some of the options that are least likely to be chosen, but hey, if you're not here, go with none of the above. Now, if you are a sole proprietorship, you likely have one or more employees. No, you actually are yourself and you are your employee in this case, okay? If you actually employ people, then you want to put the number of employees that you have. For us, we're going to say it's just an individual. We're going to do one. Okay, now be careful. This little question jumps up at the very top, and I've seen people try to fill this application out, and they'll get down here and start filling things out and not understand why they can't move to the next page. Reason you can't move to the next page is because of this little bitty question at the top, which is your business owned by a business entity? We're a sole prop, so no, it is not. Now, the SBA wants to know a little bit more about the owner. So we're gonna tell you a little bit about Joe Jack. Joe Jack's mobile number is his business number. So we're gonna use that same number. Joe Jack's title is owner. His percentage of ownership is 100%. Why? Because he is his business. And Joe Jack's email is actually the same as before. Now, whether you use the tax ID number in the beginning or a social, this is still talking about Joe Jack as an individual. So we're gonna go ahead and use his social security number. Joe Jack's date of birth. We're gonna say 02, he was born on Valentine's Day. Let's give him Valentine's Day. Place of birth, I'm a Rep Houston. Is Joe Jack a US citizen? We're gonna say yes. And Joe Jack's residential address. You know what? Why don't we just use mine? How about that? Alrighty, so we're gonna fill that information in. If you are a partnership or an LLC or something like that, we can actually choose add additional owner. In this case, we don't have an additional owner because we are the owner. Now, again, for the sake of time, we're running through these questions. So, these are very important. They talk about convictions for felonies. They talk about suspensions or debarment of federal government options. It talks about criminal activities, indictments. It talks about all types of felonies. We're gonna say no for the sake of this application, but I suggest you read through these very, 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 very closely and make sure you do not fit in any of these categories. Okay, this mid-page right here where this little baby blue area is, this actually is when someone is assisting you with filling out the application. If you're doing this application yourself, which you should, it's not worth paying anybody. As you can see, it's not a hard application. We just pass by that. Now, this area is extremely important. Why is this area important, Natasha? Because I've seen a couple of applications be denied or held up because of this information. So when we start a company, sometimes we tend to use our personal bank account when we're sole proprietors. In the event that you are a sole proprietor or an independent contractor and you use your personal bank account, it is important to understand that what you put on the first page is very important to coordinate with what you put on this page. So when you get to send funds, you need to know your bank account, you need to know your routing number, your account number, you need to know the address of which the bank has on file, and you either need to know your tax ID number or your federal ID number. If you use a federal ID number in your company name in the beginning of the application, you want to ensure that that bank account has that same information. For instance, one application was held up because the address on the bank account was different from the address on the business. So it is important that you make sure that that information matches up. If you have not looked at your bank account information in a while, maybe you've moved a couple of times but had not paid attention because you do digital bank statements, you don't actually receive them physically anymore, you may have missed that that address changed, and I did see a lot of that as well. So be sure that the information that you provided on the front matches what's on file with the bank. So in our case, we're just gonna put some anytime information in. We're at Chase Bank, make sure that routing number matches up to that bank account number. And you're gonna come down here, read all of this information, determine whether you agree with it, don't agree with it, whatever the case may be. Click the I hereby certify under penalty or perjury under the law of the United States that the above is true and correct. Be sure that information is correct. Next, it gives you an opportunity to review everything that you put on the application. I suggest you read through this information and ensure that you answered the questions properly. Hit submit, and you're done. That's how fast it is. That's how easy it is. Let's go ahead and get this money before September 30th. Talk to you guys later.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this channel.